Welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast, where we share career stories, strategies, and lessons learned on how industry leaders and influencers have built their personal brands. Now, let's get started with the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast. I'm your host, Paula Edgar, and I'm super excited today to be talking to somebody fabulous. But before I do that, I want to tell you about the Branding Room Only podcast. It's a podcast where we talk about branding, personal branding from experts and influencers in order to gauge their experiences and their advice on personal brands. And today's guest is one of my favorites, Jason Levin. He is the author of Relationships to Infinity, The Art and Science of Keeping in Touch. Everybody on the video will see me holding the book. He founded Ready, Set, Launch LLC after a career in brand management at Unilever, consulting at Accenture, and employer branding sales at Vault.com. He is married to a wonderful redheaded attorney, entrepreneur, and together they have two very active redheaded sons. I can attest to the redhead wife because I've met her. So, Jason, welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast.
Paula, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited that we're doing this because I think that our story is really a testament to what you talk about in your book. And so let's talk. First of all, I want to ask you, what does a personal brand mean to you? How do you define it?
So since you've read my book, I love going to the source, right?
Yes.
I love the source of things. And so the source of personal brand for me is the 1997 article in Fast Company where Tom Peters wrote a brand called You. And therein lies the birth of the concept of personal brand. So former brand manager at Unilever, the classic definition of a brand is delivery of a promise or a service of an experience. A personal brand is your ability to deliver that and what makes you unique and different. So that's how I think about that, how we think about our differentiation and how we think about consistently delivering that to the buyers of our services, buyers of us.
The buyers of us. Consistency is so key in that piece. And I love that you took it back to the source.
I feel
like the source. Okay, so given that, when you think about your personal brand, what are 3 words or phrases that come to mind describing you?
You know, it's funny, you have the book and people have told me for years, Jason, you're really great at keeping in touch. And so to unpack that, I often say that appreciation is currency. And so how do we keep in touch? Well, I think it's a big opportunity for the thank you party to all the people that have been there for you over the years. So keeping in touch, appreciation, and of course, in my day life, I'm an attorney by marriage, dad to 2 boys. So even I can be here with you and everybody's healthy and well and where they need to be, I'm appreciative of. So
I love the appreciation piece. I often, well, I shouldn't say often, sometimes take the liberty of defining the person who I'm going to connect with in 3 words myself, just to see if we have alignment. And I have clever, connector, and community. And so,
nice.
I just feel like we're right here.
Yeah, totally right here.
So tell me, do you have a favorite quote or a mantra?
So, I thought about this. I'm not a quote or a mantra type of person, and I respect all that do. I do have a favorite movie I watch every year.
Okay. What's that?
And it speaks to me in different ways. Did you ever see Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep?
No, but I feel like that it's my husband's a big Albert Brooks fan, so probably something he's watched, but I haven't seen it. No.
So the whole concept of the movie is that you don't go to heaven or hell. You go to this place called Judgment City, where you are judged by how you've dealt with fear in your life.
Fear.
And so the movie's all about fear.
Wow.
And so it struck me as a teenager when I saw this movie. I was like, oh my God, how cool is that we can be thinking about fear and how we address fear. And so every year I watch the movie and I like to ask myself, well, what am I afraid of now? And how am I addressing that? And how am I thinking about that? And are these, you know, because there's all these quotes around fear, which I disagree with. I think fear is normal. I think fear is healthy, and it's what is it, and what does it mean to us at each different age and stage of our lives. So defending your life is my go-to place
I
for
love
fear.
this. I love this because number one, I love anything that differentiates somebody from somebody else. So every time I hear an answer to this, I'm like, that's right, exactly that. But this one I think I'm gonna steal. So but every year I do a intention and a goal setting session, and I walk people through, and I do it for free for anybody who wants to do it. And I walk people through a process of asking reflective questions.
Right.
But I've never asked the question about what are you afraid of now? I love that because I think while it seems like a very sort of maybe Debbie Downer question, it also is a very, you're going to focus on what the things are that you want to kind of move away and out from as well. Like it motivates you.
It creates an honest conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, where does this fear come from?
Yes.
How do you deal with when you're, is it situational? What happens in that situation? What do you do beforehand? What do you do afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you evolve with that? And so,
I love
wonderful.
that. I love
Steal
that.
away.
Oh,
Steal
done
away.
and done with attribution. Okay. So do you have a hype song that you love? So one that either hypes you up when you're about to go do something great and bring full Jason Levin-ness, or one when you're like, oh, today is not a day, I need to feel better. Either same song or different song. Tell me which ones you got.
So there's two songs. When I'm about to go in front of a group, I'm usually already like up there.
Yeah.
So I need something to bring me down. And so what brings me down is the following song.
Okay.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and good. So it's like I need to be silly, right? And the notion of me dancing and out there and feeling, and pink and all the good things. So that's my go-to whenever I'm in a situation where I feel that I need to be pretty. And then when I'm just like it's raining or I'm tired, the Greatest Showman, Hugh Jackman, This Is Me. But the version of the song, there's multiple versions of the song. Watch the one, and it's on YouTube. I love it. It's when they're selling the movie to the executives and nobody's in costume and they're doing it like a cappella. And so for me, I put on This Is Me, and I'm just like, yes, this, I'm me. I like being me. I'm bald, but I'm still me. And, so
we will make sure we link that YouTube in the show notes so that
absolutely. I'll send it to you.
Oh yes, please do. Please do.
Yeah.
This mixtape that I'm going to make at the end of the year is going to be fire. Okay. So I was thinking about relationships in anticipation of our conversation.
Sure.
And branding and how your relationships flow, they all kind of go together. I do think that a big part of your brand is who who knows you and how you know each other. So tell me, what made you do this? What made you write this book? Tell me your story and then how you birthed this book.
Well, I mean, for years, I was always fascinated with the concept that we say keep in touch and we don't. Like it's just the saying for a lot of people. Hey, let's keep in touch. But I'm like, I actually meant it. And so when I went out on my own 12 years ago, I told my wife, Lori, I was going to write a book called Relationships to Infinity, and it's all about keeping in touch. And of course, when you start out in a business, there's no money in writing a book. And so you had to build a practice. And so every subsequent year, I'm going to write the book. It's going to be called Relationships to Infinity. And I'm doing these trainings and I'm talking about the concepts. And I'm still seeing people that are struggling with this notion of keeping in touch. Then the pandemic hits, we all go into lockdown, everybody's miserable. And I feel very blessed. Every year someone would come up to me and say, Jason, you should write a book. And I'm like, I know, it's called Relationships to Infinity. So after 10 years of talking about relationships to infinity, I feel really lucky. I have I do radio interviews for Bloomberg Business. There was a radio journalist that reached out to me and said, Jason, I think you have a book in you. And I just took a book writing class through Georgetown School of Continuing Studies. I think this would be perfect for you. I can't tell you how quickly I signed up for that book writing class.
Wow.
Because it did so many wonderful things. And, Paula, you and I have talked about this, success is not alone. We don't do anything in isolation. The entire class debunks this myth that you need to go into some corner and write the book alone in solitude and unhappy. Although it's very emotional to write a book, but we're in a cohort and I had an editor every week. All right, Jason, give me my 2,000 words.
Wow.
And I'll see you next week until, and so I'm writing. And, the famous Brené Brown who talks about your shitty first draft. And let me tell you, my first words on page, there, we get the Charmin out. That's for sure. But the thing that I really appreciated about my book professor, his mantra is, books are not written, books are rewritten. And so you can't rewrite a book unless you have a first draft. And the versioning and the editing and sharing chapters with people and getting feedback and all those kinds of things made it what it is. And so book writing via community. And so integrating, folks within my world to be able to, give me like, this is what I think about this, and this is what I think about that. And then you come to this final, well, I look at it now and it's like, of course, there's always things. But yeah, that's how I wrote the book. So that's how we wrote the book. So the community around me helped me write the book.
So it'll be Infinity Part 2.
One of my friends said, there are infinite opportunities to version your book. I was like, yes.
I mean,
yes.
still out of touch, : there's so much here. Speaking of branding, well, I have to say that sitting here, every time I'm in conversation with it, I'm an extrovert. I think that we have the opportunity to sort of connect with folks, but I love connecting with people. Sure. But there's always something that I don't know that I need from the conversation. And so I don't even know what we're going to talk about next, but I know that was what I needed for this, because I have been in this space of being like, girl, just write this book. Write the book. And so I am hearing the universe literally clubbing me over my head, telling me to write the book. And so I'm going to take that as the motivation, and whomever out there is an editor and at a book place, listen to it and say, Paula, come talk to me. Let's put it out to the universe. All right.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about relationships.
Let's talk about relationships.
There's one part in your book that really stuck out to me that I think that is going to resonate for the audience, which is the Bermuda guilt triangle. Can you talk about this feeling, this concept of the guilt triangle as to why people may not stay in touch?
Right. So, in coming up with the Bermuda Keep in Touch triangle, and at the core of the question is, we say keep in touch and we don't. Well, why? And so, so the book is founded in academic research. And then I started looking at the psychology, the sociology around emotions. How do we feel? What do we tell ourselves when we're putting ourselves in certain situations? And so I started going down these different avenues and talking to psychologists. What do we feel when we need to get back in touch with somebody? What are these human emotions that we feel? And the more that I stayed there, I started to recognize there were three foundational normal human emotions we feel: guilt, fear, and worry, that come out when we need to reconnect with someone. And so the idea of the Bermuda Triangle, and I would look at people and I'm like, oh, go get back in touch with someone. And it's as if, just like planes and ships get lost forever in the Bermuda Triangle, so do we get lost forever in our own heads about a particular person.
Yes.
I'm not that interesting. They don't want to hear from me. Yeah, the relationship wasn't that good anyway. And so we have, we all talk about the negative self-talk. I wanted to give this a name because all of us want connection. All of us need connection. All of us have had important people in our lives we've lost touch with as we get older. Life events, all the things that are going on. And so that's the core of what the Bermuda Keep in Touch Triangle is. And everybody has a version of it, right? Because we're all human.
Yes.
And so, and what's even crazier now, like after the book's been written, is we're looking at this set of things that are happening in our world around loneliness. Surgeon General says we're all lonely.
Yeah.
The state of New York has appointed Dr. Ruth Westheimer as the ambassador for loneliness.
That's a whole nother podcast because I'm like,
what? I was like, what?
That's branding. That's branding right there.
That's branding. The fact that I can say that with a straight face, that we're still talking about Dr. Ruth, God bless her, in her 90s.
Yes, yes.
And even the World Health Organization has created a global council on loneliness. And so one connection, how do we get there? For me, it's the triangle and all these emotions that are holding us back.
Yeah. So. When I read that, I thought, sort of hanging above the triangle is like shame. Yeah. Right. And for me, I get asked this question over and over again. Well, I haven't talked to this person in insert amount of years here. I'm just going to give it up. It just, right. And then I often hear stories later on where people, they just go ahead and they reach out and the person's like, they were so happy to hear from me. They were thinking about reaching out to me too. They were nervous, da, 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 da. And I'm like, you know what? If the relationship is truly damaged and you cannot be repaired, then your outreach is not going to shift that. Right. No. It's like, but you're not losing anything if you actually rekindle it.
Yeah. It's not the rupture of a relationship. It's the fizzle of the relationship that people get wigged out about. Yes. When a relationship just fizzles, that's no fault of anybody.
Yeah.
And so what is shame? I mean, guilt is a feeling of shame or regret, right? Yeah. And it is that shame that my fault. Yep. I must have done something.
Yep.
Well, you moved because you got a new job. Yep. You got into a relationship. You might have had little ones. Yep. Things might have not have worked out, and now you're not together with that person. Like all these like life events, you had to care for an aging family member. There was a passing. Like all these things happen. That's not a rupture. That's like all these life things that are happening, which cause these things to fizzle.
So I feel like one benefit of the pandemic is that we all had this fizzle, right? We all had this seismic shift in who we are and how we connect that allows us some grace to be like, hey, haven't seen you in a while because we've been inside, right? Like,
not only that, those people that we would just run into that we didn't run into anymore, and now we see them again.
Yeah.
Like there was that period of time where I was forgetting people's names.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I would just go, forgive me, it's been a while since the pandemic. Remind me your first name. And I would just just say, pandemic brain, and just, I forgot your name.
That is perfect. The way of doing it.
But it's like, I know you. You and I recognize each other. You know my name. I forgot yours.
I call it cheerleader syndrome because I, obviously, was a cheerleader. And
stop.
I know. But what had happened is everybody knew my name and I did not know theirs. And I'd be like, hi, hey. Hey, girl, what's up, dude?
So you were a cheerleader. High school, I was voted most talkative guy.
I mean, where have we been all of each other's lives, Jason? What is going on? So you already gave two tangible things that people need to know about, because I was going to ask you about this. What do you do? Like, let's just say I want to talk to somebody. I haven't talked to them in a while, but I feel like there's a reason I actually have a reason I want to reach out to them. Like, I don't want to be transactional, but there's a reason I have, right? What do I do? Like, what do I do?
So there's kind of two lanes. One, reconnecting just for fun.
Yeah.
Or two, because you actually have an ask.
Yeah.
But don't reconnect just for fun when there's actually an ask. That's the ultimate bait and switch. So number one, don't bait and switch. If you have an ask, then say, I know it's been a long time, but one of the things I've always appreciated about you is I have an ask for you. Can we talk?
I love that.
And you're setting up an honest conversation about something or with the person that you've already told is amazing on that particular thing.
I love that.
So make an ask with intention that is honest and put a little, honey in it. Right?
So no bait and switch. So don't be like, hey girl, you want to go for coffee? And then be like, here's my proposal.
People hate that. Like, and it's always that human, what do they want?
Yeah.
Why are they getting back in touch with me?
Yes. It's I call it like my Brooklyn, like, tingle. I'm like, there's something that you haven't asked for. And it's because trust has been breached before. And so now you're like,
well, I mean, and that's the thing, why I had a whole chapter on trust in the book is like, no trust, no relationship. There's nothing to get back in touch with if there wasn't some level of trust beforehand. And so, so there's no breaching trust. There's only honesty. And people appreciate honesty because, quote, we're all busy, right? And it's like, all right, can I get 20 minutes with you? Because I want to talk about this. And then already the agenda's set.
Yep. So I did a pet peeves podcast recently where I talked about things that get on my nerves.
Right.
I could do that every week. But anyway, so one of the ones that I called out really resonated with people. Like, people were sending me messages. It was this. It's when someone wants to make an introduction and just makes the introduction without giving the other person a heads up.
Oh, sacrilege. Sacrilege.
Agreed.
I mean, what needs to happen, you need your blessings. And I don't care what religion you are, whether you believe or not believe, but we talk about blessings, we talk about consent. You need to get consent from the person you're going to introduce. Hey, listen, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. I mean, I was just asking someone for an introduction, and she's like, let me call you. And she had done the right thing. She had reached out to the person, and then she called me back. She's like, let me tell you why it's not going to work. And it was honest. And I was like, all right, cool. But although the only exception I would say is that if you're in an alumni relations role where you're like, all right, here's an alum of this place, here you shouldn't be introduced, then that doesn't need an introduction.
Then the context is already there, right?
Yeah, context is already there. You're an alum of this law school. You're an alum of this business school. You two should know each other. For me, that's the only exception to the, or if there's like, all right, this person wants to donate to this nonprofit. You two should know each other.
You have money, you need it. Take it.
All right, that's the only exception I would put out there.
I have another exception that I've had a conversation about this before. The exception is that there's probably like 5 people who never have to ask me for anything. That if they put my name in something, I know that I'm going to act because it's them.
Right.
But those people never use this. They always ask, right? But they have that ability to override the etiquette in that situation.
But that's a level of your closest trusted people with like the inner circle.
Yeah. Yes. And the irony is they don't use it because they also respect. that I want to know the context before I'm connected. But they could easily, there's like 4 or 5 people who could just be like, name, bye. And I'd be like, done. What
Right.
do you need?
But it's funny, the things I'll get CC'd on, and I'm like, all he had to do was reach out to me
Yep.
and say, and give me a little bit more context on why you want to make this introduction.
Yeah. The wild thing is that it impacts your brand, because here's the thing on 2 sides. One, if somebody reaches out to you, makes the introduction, and then the person who they're introducing doesn't respond because they're like, hell, what the hell? You didn't ask my permission. Then you don't, the power or influence that you thought you might have, you're showing your brand is messed up here.
Let's take this a step further. And what even drives me crazier is that I'll get asked, I make the introduction, the person that asked doesn't follow up. That's happened. And I'm just like, all right. Like lots of no there. Like, the highest level of no. Like, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
So it's and they're that is just common decency. All right, throw me to BCC, and within a reasonable amount of time, I'll make the introduction. Doesn't happen to have in the first 5 minutes, but at the very least in the first 12 or 24 hours of that introduction. But there's just people that are just like, after the introduction's made, and then I'm like, ghosting? Stop. You just asked for this.
Yeah.
So that's happened also.
I have to say that in the safe space of just me, you, and the internet, that I have, my challenge has always been, I need people to tell me they're going to make an introduction and give me the context, because I have ADHD. And so sometimes if an email comes through that I wasn't expecting and prepared to respond for, it's just, I don't even remember that I have it, right? And so I have to be prepped and primed and ready to go with whatever it is so that I respond. If not, then I'm going to say, oh, I'll just wait till later. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of love in later. I love the laters. I didn't mean to, but they are still in later.
As a kindred spirit, I'm probably going to be diagnosed with ADHD soon. The procrastination exists.
Yep.
And if you're not giving the clearest context of the introduction, then it's like, all right, that's nice.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yes. So I have a 2-part thing. So let's hold on to this one thing. We need to talk about follow-up, just follow-up generally. So hold on, don't let me forget, speaking of procrastination. But when you think about, oh gosh, that was hilarious. That's a perfect example of how my ADHD works. Forget it. I'm going to just grab follow-up now. So when I think about the things that challenge me, and you just started bringing this up, challenge me when what that people don't do is I will say, hey, send me an email, do this thing, or hey, I'll do this for you when we've met, and then there's no follow-up.
Right.
We meet and I'm like, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Please just send me this email, and no follow-up. And I know that people are busy. I know all these things. Oh, I know what I was remembering now. So my question, and this is good, it's 2 parts, is do you recommend that people have like a template that they use to help facilitate the follow-up? Like, hey, it was great to meet you at insert here. Tell me, what is your strategy to make it easier so that it's not so hard?
I think it gets back to the versions of the Bermuda Keep in Touch triangle.
Yes.
Where you just had an interaction. You were clear as day. Here's my card. I'd love to hear from you. And then you leave, and then Brand comes back. Paula never really liked you. That wasn't that interesting. You have all these things. Why don't you wait? And instead, the business card or whatever, just put the email out, and it's context, gratitude, and whatever else you talked about. And I think people think that a follow-up note needs to be the rewriting of the Magna Carta. And
417 yesterday.
I was honored to be standing next to you in the ballroom of that hotel where that lovely set of drapes were next to you. It's like we had a great conversation. I love connecting on X. I know that you have some travel coming up.
Mhm.
Maybe we can connect via Zoom or phone at the end of the month. Here are a couple of dates. Or, whatever it is that you talked about. I think the reason that form doesn't work is because back to what do people want? They want personalization. So it's this juxtaposition. People want to feel special.
Yep.
Paula, you're special. We're all special.
Yep.
We want a personalized note. We think AI is going to do that for us. We think this is going to do it for us. But AI is not in the room understanding what that conversation was.
Right.
And then you layer on, so I'm an attorney by marriage, right? Ooh, subject verb agreement. This sounds perfect. What do I put in the RE? What do I?
Yeah.
And all you're doing is 3 sentences.
Yeah. Perfection paralysis.
Yeah. I often talk about the joy in the mundane. I love follow-up. And I think that, we all have an opportunity just to show the courtesy that conversation happened. Right. And therein lies a larger opportunity. And that could be a mantra back to what I was talking about earlier around fear. Why are you afraid of following up? What's the worst thing that could happen if you don't? Well, nothing new because you didn't follow up.
We'll never know because you didn't do it. So oftentimes people will ask this question too. So I met somebody 3 months ago and I sent an email a day later and we emailed, but now what? Now what do I do? Should I send them a love note? Do I send them an article? How do you make sure you solidify the connection in a way that follow-up from that initial follow-up makes sense without being pesky and stalkery and weird?
It's funny that the notion of being a stalker, right? Well, stalkers make weird phone calls. Stalkers show up at your office or your home. If you've emailed with somebody and you want to continue that relationship, then, have you seen what they're putting out on LinkedIn? Have you done a Google search on what they've been up to or what the organization's doing? And, again, back to personalization and customization. If they are putting stuff out there, what does that mean to you? Oh, I saw this article or I saw you had this win. Let me tell you what that means. Hey, congratulations. Or I loved how you framed X. Or you're working for this organization. I just see that you're moving buildings. Is that going to change where you get lunch? Or, again, like there's a whole set of things that you can be doing to say either to research what's going on or back to the conversation and the magical words, I thought of you because.
Yeah.
I thought of you because. And therein lies, we all want to be thought of. And so, so if 3 months go by and there's nothing out there, put a tickle in your calendar. All right, month 4. Let me see if I can find something. And so so as long as you are going in with the intent that you want to continue that relationship, then that will happen.
Is the calendar your best strategy in terms of putting a tick? Like, what does it just say? Like, check on Paula 3 months from now.
Well, I think you can also use, for me, the simplest thing, if, depending on how high up they're in the organization, put their name into a Google alert. Put their name, put their organization into a Google alert. And when you check, like have the check their LinkedIn feed, see who's commenting on their stuff, those kinds of things.
I love
and see where you're at in terms of what they've shared with you. Right. So they might have dropped some really great nuggets. And it's been 3 months. Did you follow up on what they said?
I love that.
You have new questions. So I think there's, depending on the conversation, there's all different kinds of follow-up, and it doesn't need to be robotic. Right.
I like that because it's also good for your brand, because even even if the person is not responding and being like, oh, thank you for whatever the perspective is that you shared, they are also still seeing that you've put some effort into whatever, your outreach, because a Google alert, like you said, checking on their LinkedIn feed, etc., shows that you care. You're doing an extra step.
Like, for example, you look at the back of my book, the first person that blurred my book is Dan Pink, right? He's my man crush, right? So Dan Pink, thought leader, he's written Drive and To Sell Is Human and Power of Regret. Am I completely, full of gratitude that he blurred my book? Absolutely. Does he continue to write back to me when I send him things? No. Does that bother me? No, because he's that big.
Yeah.
Right. But every 3 months, I'll check in and see what he's up to or whatever. Or if there's some piece of news where I see he's done something, I'll shoot him hey, that's awesome. Good for you. And congratulations. And so I think it's one of those things where I think too often we need this, everybody has to be a BFF or everybody has to respond to me. And it's no, you can still have some person that's a grand poobah and you send them something and you don't hear back from them.
Yep.
But I think in what you're describing, there is that opportunity to continue that relationship. All right. So use the example. What about 3 months? What about 6 months from there? What about a year from there? What about 2 years? What about 3 years? That's the idea of relationships to infinity. There are infinite opportunities to continue that relationship.
Yep.
The natural continuum to the end, the opportunity. I love follow-up. Because if they don't, it's you know what? I could have written, if they didn't follow up after I wrote that thing in 3 months, I'm going to try again in 3 months from now. I'm going to try to do something better than I did beforehand. And I think each of us has that opportunity, especially when you want to continue the relationship. So.
I think something that resonates for me that you do and you inspired me to start to do, even though I don't think I've told you, so I'm going to tell you now, and I'm going to tell you what I think it is as well, is you understand that gratitude is a facilitator, right? And so while I think everybody knows it, in concept, if you say thank you, we got through kindergarten, right? Say thank you, getting good manners. But I think as we get older and we get more in our careers and more experience, there's less thank you than I would love, right? And so then when you get more thank yous, it hits more personally. It's much more impactful when you hear the thank you. So the first time that you see, look at your thank you card. That's right. I have a drawer full of thank you notes.
I'm ready to thank. Who can I thank? I got the stamps that say thank you.
I love that.
Right at my so you it's one of those things I ask of myself. We all have that opportunity to act on.
And the first time we interacted, when we met, you sent a note. And I was like, look at that. He's actually doing what his book says. Let me find out. And I'll tell you, I said to myself, if I can understand how I felt in just getting that, then I want to be the person who makes that happen for other people as well. And so I have been much more thoughtful. I should put it in my calendar, send a thank you note, right? So that I get in the habit of it in case I get busy. And at least it gives me a little bit of a reminder to do so.
I mean, because Paula, all the positive mojo that you already bring, the positive ripples you're already creating, if you add that one in, your ripples become like a wave.
Yes.
And I think we all have an opportunity to do that with each other. And it's real. It's not fake. It's just using our voice to connect.
Yeah. So we kind of talked about some best practices in here about keeping in touch and how those impact your brand. But what about things that people do when they're connecting that are bad for their brands?
Oh my gosh. I think, one you were talking about, not following up.
Yep. Definitely.
I still think if you're going to link in with somebody, to at least send a note. I enjoyed meeting you. I also think the Bernstein Bears books, There's one Bernstein Bears books where the kids have the problem with the gimmies. Gimme, 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 gimme. I want. In the case of the gimmies. And I think so many asks from, or, what can you do for me kinds of things. And then just like the over promotional things, after you're like, all right, let me tell you how amazing I am. And, and you're just rushing human nature. You can't rush human nature. So
you can't rush human nature. Yes. Come on.
No.
Give me some philosophy. I like this.
Well, I've got 20. I've got 10 commandments.
So I do have a question for you.
Sure.
You often talk at organizations and firms about how the relationships connects to business development.
Sure.
One thing I see people struggling with often that I would love to hear your take on is the appropriate time in a relationship to make an ask.
Right.
How do you gauge that?
So I think when someone who could be in an opportunity to, buy your services, either your services or of your firm, is when they start talking more specifically about the problems that they're facing. They're opening up a little bit more. And that's where, for me, it's always sales is listening. Tell me more about that. How are you addressing that right now? Do you need help on that? And I think too often folks get wigged out with the sale, the ask, where it's, and as someone who also works with like in-house folks, in-house attorneys need help. You can't be an expert on everything.
Yes.
It's not possible.
Yep.
So if they're in a place where they're starting to share some certain things, then there's an opportunity, it sounds like you could use help. That's something I do. Or, I've got a colleague that I might be able to introduce you that could help you with that. And if you treat it as an opportunity to help and support someone's work, you all want to be helped and supported in our work.
Yes.
Then I think you can get over the ask, It's like, hello, in-house counsel. I am here to make rain.
It doesn't seem to be drizzling yet. May I please have the money?
It's like, hello, in-house counsel. Give me the work.
Sometimes it's like that, which is terrible.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I find that contrary to popular belief, when I have seen this in action, I find that women do a really, really great job of business development because they're really, really good at relationship building.
Sure.
But there's this concept that men are the rainmakers. And I'm like, actually, a steady drizzle is better than that rain that you're talking about because, it might be louder, but it definitely is not better.
Because I believe as things become more complex, hail to the listener, hail to the question asker. And yes, women are great listeners. Like, ask a question.
Yep.
Wait. Oh, interesting.
Wait. The wait. Some people are just born in the space of taking up space. And I think waiting is a skill some folks have to learn to just let the silence do what it needs to do.
Yeah. I lived in France for 5 years. I've been to 30 different countries. There was one study. The average American gets uncomfortable after 7 seconds of silence.
I was there at 3, like,
oh my God, what's he gonna say? So the pause. We often talk about being present and being in the moment, and and so you don't know where this human being's at, and sometimes they're going through something where they can't articulate it immediately.
Yeah.
So just sit there.
Yeah. Yes. and this is a broad generalization, but when I was in France, I remember being super uncomfortable because they will say like this, they'll be Paula, je parle un peu de-" and they would go, and they have that long way, and I'd be like, what is it? They and I'm guessing the words. Like, so that speaks to me being under that 7 seconds where I'm like, what do you want to say? I will say it.
And then you get like you get the French person and the
Yeah.
German and the
Yeah.
Dutch and everybody's all together and you're like, what is going on
Right.
here?
I need to know the full sentence. What are we talking about here?
And then there'll always be fun to like then would be somebody from Japan at the table and it's anyway. But I think as an American, like we're loud, we're taught to talk, we're taught to fill space, we're all those kinds of things.
Yes.
And I think that even between Americans, we can be better listeners. But I think there's also the cultural fluency of also being able to say, oh, what is it like in your country? And what's the best way to communicate?
Yeah,
right?
no, cultural fluency is key.
Yeah.
It's so key. And the key to cultural fluency is to make an appropriate ask and to understand that whatever your standard is not the standard.
Right. Right.
While it makes so much sense, I can't tell you how many conversations I have with people who are like, but they didn't speak American. And I was like, first of all, that's not a language. Second of all, no one is obligated to speak English in other countries where English is not the first language. But I do think when we have this brand as a country, which is like we're Coca-Cola, we're beer, we're America. So everybody wants to do what we do. And when you go to other places, which is why I'm so adamant about my kids traveling, you understand cultural humility in order to be more culturally fluent. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think it's one of those things where when you do interact with other cultures, then you see there are other ways of doing things and they work too.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Okay. So of course I knew that I was going to be like jabbing with you and then time was going to pass. So number one, you have to come back on. So there's that.
Pleasure. Paula, come on. Yeah.
Okay.
I would be an honor.
I'm just going to let you know, like they're already booking you for another one. But so I have a question because people ask this all the time, which is, am I able to build relationships properly if I'm an introvert?
Yes, you can. Because what is the introvert's superpower? The capacity to listen. So I think this notion that the only way to network is in a big room is not true. It's back to get a conversation, follow up on the conversation. Like at the very base level, you can be very good at connecting and reconnecting individually. And if you do not like large rooms, one way for you to get over that as an introvert is get on a committee. Get on a committee where you know the people already and you see them again and again and again. It's not like being an introvert is some kind of, death sentence. It is just that you derive your energy from quiet.
Yeah.
And Lord knows, as a father of a 10 and a 12-year-old boys, I have found my inner introvert. Like hiding in the closet is a good use of my time. So I think recognizing that, and even if you are going to a conference, like take breaks. Get that like those. So yes, I think people that have those introversion tendencies absolutely can connect and reconnect. You have the capacity to listen. It's one of those things where you just recognize that you need your silence, and so take that.
So I'm glad that I asked the question because it is, again, like I said, something that people ask all the time, and I do think I think it's just another type of superpower. It's not a lesser power. All right, so. As we close, I'm gonna try to squeeze like 80 things into 4 minutes. What piece of advice do you have for people who are trying to build their brands through relationship building?
Just start. Just start.
Love it. I love it.
One person at a time.
Love it.
One, and if it's daily or weekly, just get started. Pick a person, outreach to them, go to the next one.
Yep.
Keep it personal, keep it custom, keep it authentic. And that therein lies, I was just having lunch with a chief marketing and business development officer. And he said to me at the end of the lunch, Jason, I love your consistency. I love your consistency. And that I was like, oh my God. I was getting all goosebumpy and like, and that's, I think that's all that really people want is a reliable person that is who they are. Right.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Truth. That's all I want. Okay. So tell me, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I love going swimming.
Mhm.
It's my again, back to quiet. Like swimming's a great use of my time.
Okay.
I love going out to dinner with my family.
Yep.
Like my wife and 2 boys, they're all foodies. So could be Indian food or dumplings, or it could be Mexican. Like we, put anything on their plates and we're doing it.
I love it.
So, we're an eating family.
Love
I
that.
also love working out. I've got a couple of buddies I go to the gym with, and that's fun. And my elementary school has a whiskey club, so a good bourbon every once in a while also is a good use of time. So
I'm assuming it's for the adults.
it's for the adults. I know it's funny. I say that Birch Elementary School in DC,
Right.
whiskey club. It's like no, it's for the adults.
I'm like, I have a couple of people I need to call after this. Okay. So I ask all of my guests to tell me about what is that aspect of their brand that they will always stand by, that they will never compromise. Talk to me about that. What is that for you?
Don't mislead me. Don't mislead me.
Yeah.
Ethics.
Yeah.
Ethics. And just say what's on your mind and be as transparent as you can, and I will do the same.
I love
And
that.
so, it's all the different ways of just saying, can you please be honest?
I used to attend a church, and the pastor would say, straight talk for straight understanding. Straight talk for straight understanding.
I love
And
it.
I love it. Just keep it to the point. Come on, what do you got?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is this. Branding room only is play on standing room only. And so if you're on a stage in a room, what are people coming to hear, experience, learn about you that is your magic?
I think when people come to hear me talk, one of the things is reframing what they think they already know about a particular topic. Reframe relationships, reframe their networks, reframe communication, reframe. And then action, tactical action, concrete action. I think that, there's a lot of folks that, are good at 30,000 feet and give you grand ideas and grand vision. Come and hear me talk, and I'll give you all the goods, what you can do now, tomorrow, the day following.
Yep.
Because if it's not concrete, and if it's not here, and if it's not here, you're not going to do it.
That part. That part. So tell people how they can find you and your work and connect with you.
So my website is readysetlaunch.net. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jason Levin. And in either of those scenarios, usually as someone who talks about connection and reconnection, I'll respond. I promise.
Fantastic. Jason, thank you so much for being in the branding room. Everybody, make sure you share this with your friends, the extroverts and the introverts, and your colleagues who don't do this well. And also everybody else just needs to hear us chat and have the best time. I appreciate you spending some time with me, and I'll see you next time in the branding room.
Thank you, Paula.